Oh, hello guys. Another review time? Yeah, Spider-Man. Get used to it.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man! So a couple weeks ago, I had a look back on the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. And it was a lot of fun.
You are a shining example of snowflake millennials that don't understand jokes. Now, go wear the dress your husband bought you and stop making you too bitch.
I hadn't seen the movies in a while, and it helped me appreciate them a little bit better. I had lots of reasonable points that everybody unanimously agreed with. As usual.
I hope that you burn in the deepest hole on the hell and then Doom Guy appears in front of you. End.
But then I remembered that there's a Spider-Man movie that I haven't seen. And of course, I've heard terrible things about it. Every film critic on YouTube has already talked about this movie. But I kind of just got here, and I didn't get to talk about it, so I want my turn. I am of course talking about Amazing Spider-Man 2. However, there is one movie that came out before that. A movie that I have seen. Once. When it came out. So before we start, I have a quick thing to address about my last video, because it comes into play when reviewing these movies. Lots of people seem to mistake me teasing the campiness of the Sam Raimi trilogy as a bad thing. I said many times that I like how campy these movies are. I wholeheartedly believe that the corniness was intentional on Sam Raimi's part. My point was that the campiness is more of a product of the time, and this level of comic book silliness stands out by today's standards.
Yeah,
Overall, I like
sure.
the campiness, and I embrace it. It makes the movies 100% more enjoyable. But I'm not bringing this up to save face. You guys know I don't really care if people disagree with me or misinterpret my videos. I'm bringing this up because this is exactly why I hate the Amazing Spider-Man movies. At their worst, the Sam Raimi movies are still fun to watch. The worst one in the trilogy is really funny. Like, you can't have a bad time watching this movie. But these movies are fucking miserable to watch. They have little to no humor. They have almost no signs of life whatsoever. You don't have any uplifting or inspiring moments like the Spider-Man movies that come before or after. You don't have likable characters and charming, over-the-top performances. This review took a really long time to make because I couldn't even sit down and finish Amazing Spider-Man 2 in one go. It took me 3 days to watch it completely. 3 days! So with all that said, let's get started. We're gonna start with the first movie, The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, if I'd never heard of Spider-Man, if I wasn't a huge fanboy cuck shill like I am, would I hate this movie? No, probably not. There are two ways to approach a review of this series, as a Spider-Man fan and as a film fan. For instance, YMS's review from a few years ago very much focuses on how this movie fails as a film, while Screen Crush's video looks at how the movie fails as a Spider-Man film. Now, as someone who really likes Spider-Man and someone who really likes movies in general, I'm going to try to do both. As far as general story structure, pacing, and acting go, things could be way worse. It's not really remarkable, like there's really nothing interesting happening here, but there's nothing horrible either. Now, I'm of the opinion that you can change stuff about superheroes in their movies if it makes the movie better. I already talked about how changing the Mandarin into a different character wasn't a bad idea, and how it actually worked out pretty well. Currently, in the movies, Thor is a fucking clown, and everybody likes it, including myself. This is not how he is in the comics. He's not a fucking goofball. But they decided to make him funnier because he just wasn't resonating with audiences. These changes aren't bad. They actually make the characters a little better. However, when you make Batman pull out a gun and shoot people, I don't think that's a very good change. I don't think you should have done that. And that's the main problem with this entire series. It doesn't understand Spider-Man. It doesn't understand the stuff that makes Spider-Man work. So let's run down all these little issues because the little stuff really adds up. So the second this movie starts, we are shown the first thing that's wrong with this series. It over-romanticizes the concept of Peter Parker's parents. Say that 3 times fast. Peter Parker's parents. Actually, it wasn't that hard. It's actually pretty easy to say. Anyway, now the comics have done this a little bit too, but it's not something that's ever focused on, because Peter Parker's parents don't fucking matter. It's kind of asking a lot for the audience to care about Aunt May, Uncle Ben, and his mom and his dad all in one movie. That's too much, and it's unnecessary. There's no reason to have his parents be so important in this movie. If you completely take these two characters out, it does not change the narrative one bit. Instead, it just becomes, oh, Norman Osborn created the spiders. He created the superpowers. Okay? That's exactly what it's like in the Ultimate Spider-Man series. That's exactly what it's like in the original Sam Raimi movies. I really do not understand why his parents are so focused on in these movies, because it doesn't go anywhere. It's not that hard to motivate Spider-Man. Show me Uncle Ben getting capped, have Aunt May say something nice, bing bang boom, it's a Spider-Man story. It's not that hard. Now, the second movie talks about his parents way more, so we're gonna save it for that movie. For now, let's talk about the next shitty thing in this series, Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield is an actual good actor.
Sorry, my Prada's at the cleaners, along with my hoodie and my fuck you flip-flops, you pretentious douchebag.
You can tell that all the things that are wrong with his character are really not his fault, and that he was told to do this shit. But I did rip into Tobey Maguire pretty egregiously, so we gotta be fair. Like I said, Tobey Maguire was doing a way better job than Garfield as Peter Parker. And that's because his version of Peter Parker was written way better than this one. He was a huge nerd, and he was a fucking loser. Now, yeah, Andrew Garfield has these scenes of techno-babble where you can see that he's actually kind of intelligent.
How did you come up with this?
And in some scenes, he's a fucking idiot.
It's called strategy. I'm sure you're aware of the term strategy. You've probably heard about that in school.
But he has way too much confidence. He doesn't have that wallflower quality that Peter Parker needs. He's not a nerdy outcast. He's a fucking skater punk. He's less geek and he's a little more freak, if you get what I'm saying. You get it? I referenced the show that the Green Goblin's in. Anyway, and this is a core aspect of Peter Parker that I think you should not change under any circumstances. I made fun of Tobey Maguire's punchable face, but I think the punchable face is way better than the sexy face. Can we please tone down the sensual male model expressions? My daughter's gonna be home from school. I don't want her seeing this shit.
Just,
So in the first Flash Gordon bully scene, it's not even Peter Parker being picked on. It's some random fucking kid. This is like the first red flag of the movie. If Peter's not even the guy being picked on, then something's not right here. Honestly, I think the thing is, Andrew Garfield is way too tall and way too good looking to be held upside down by his fucking underwear, so it just wouldn't have worked out. So Peter goes to Oscorp to meet Dr. Connors because of some weird shit with his dad. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that Peter sneaks into this demonstration by stealing somebody else's intern badge. Then we have to watch that kid who earned his right to be there while he's dragged out screaming. That's fucked up. So then Peter follows this random dude and sneaks into this facility for almost no reason. He came here to see Dr. Connors, but he kind of just goes off and gets himself into danger. I thought the goal was to talk to Dr. Connors because you thought he had a connection to your dad. How is there nobody else in this part of the facility? How come he can just walk into the spider lair without anybody noticing? Anyway, despite all that, the movie is now going to remind us that it was edited by 3 people. Who the fuck cut that sequence together? That was horrible. Which one of you was it? Somebody has to explain themselves. Now, this scene is almost enjoyable, but the editing is so fucking bad that I can't even have fun watching it. The idea here is that Peter just got bitten by the spider and his powers are kicking in on the subway ride home, so he's basically accidentally fighting people.
I'm so sorry.
I almost like this scene, but editing is very important. Like every time an attack lands, the screen goes black. It looks like a mistake. That doesn't look like it's there on purpose. So Peter Parker is like in his house now, and he doesn't know how to control his strength. And this is actually a really cute scene. I'm actually fine with this scene. This is the one first good scene in the movie. Another scene I like is where Peter uses his new powers to beat Flash Thompson at basketball. Not because I actually like the scene, but because it's fucking hilarious. Basketball scenes in superhero movies are always comedy gold. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Now, a lot of other critics have talked about how the scenes between Gwen and Peter are actually the one good thing in this series, and I disagree. Here they're annoying because they're too cute. You know what I mean? Which leads to these scenes being really, really fucking long and consisting of what I can only assume is just Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone ad-libbing and just making shit up. And it just goes on for so long.
Character is my uncle. He's a pathological liar, and he thought you were someone else.
Oh, man, you don't have me on your computer.
Yeah, I mean, like I took a photo of the debate team, and you're in the debate team, so.
Right.
So He must have seen. I was touching up stuff.
You're touching himself.
I was. I'm not gonna answer
Can
that.
we fucking move on, please? Then we finally get to the scene where Uncle Ben needs to get killed, because we just gotta get it out of the way. Peter's just kind of flip-flopping between being a nice guy and being an asshole. It doesn't really seem like he even likes his uncle and his aunt. Then they have a fight and Peter runs away. So when Peter runs away, he goes to the store to buy milk. And then a very confusing scenario happens. So Peter goes to the store, he wants to buy his milk, but he doesn't have 2 cents. So he tries to steal 2 pennies out of a little take a penny, leave a penny thing. Then the guy says no, because obviously that's not how it works.
No. You can leave a penny. You can't take a penny.
What?
You can leave a penny anytime. You have to spend $10 to take a penny.
What?
You can't afford your milk. Just step aside.
What?
But Daddy didn't give you enough milk money today?
What?
It creates this strange scenario because on one hand, Peter's being a huge dick, but the other guy's also being a huge dick. So Peter's like, okay, I can't buy my milk, so he goes to leave. Then the next customer knocks this thing over so that he can steal money from the register, and then he gives Peter the milk. Okay, it makes sense so far. So then Peter's about to leave, and the shopkeeper runs out, and he's like, hey, stop that guy. Hey, random dude who I just talked shit to. Can you please assist me in apprehending a criminal? Why would anybody do that? Even if you didn't call him a fucking idiot 10 seconds before, no customer would help you chase after an armed thief. So anyway, this is where the weirdest shit happens. The thief runs a block down the street, and then he trips, and his gun falls out of his pocket or whatever. But Uncle Ben's right in front of him, so he screams and tries to go for the gun. Why did you do this? Nobody was in any danger. Were you trying to die? So yeah, that's how Uncle Ben dies. Like a fucking idiot. After that, we have a scene where Flash Thompson is nice to Peter Parker because his uncle died. And I actually like this part. 2 good scenes so far. But then, this movie commits what I consider to be the biggest sin in this small series of films. Peter's entire motivation for becoming Spider-Man, for putting on the mask and swinging around, is not, with great power comes great responsibility. I need to protect people. He does this out of revenge. He scours the streets looking for Uncle Ben's killer. He assaults random people. He makes a costume so the people he beats up won't recognize him and call the police. This is for real. I can't make this up. Spider-Man makes his costume in this movie so people won't recognize him for his crimes. This movie treats this as a heroic moment. He's finally Spider-Man. He's doing his thing. But he's not doing it for the right reasons. And as an audience member, you can tell. It doesn't feel right. Something's tonally off here. One of the things that bothers me the most is that he's not even stopping some of these criminals. He lets some of them go because they're not the guy he wants to kill. He's not doing the crime-fighting thing because of selflessness. I cannot express how much I hate this. It really fucks with me. Oh, also, I should mention that the Spider-Man suit in this movie looks like fucking shit. It's awful. He also doesn't do the fucking Spider-Man web-shooting hand thing half the time. This thing, he doesn't do that half the time. That's the only thing I expect. This is a Spider-Man movie. This is what his hand looks like. This is what it looks like. It's the first thing you have to get right. It's the first fucking thing! So Andrew Garfield has the Spider-Man suit. He has his web shooters. He's confident in his abilities. This is the first scene with him, and he comes across as a fucking villain. He's not funny. He's a jackass. And then he even says he would have beat the shit out of this guy if it was the person he was looking for.
This could have got a lot worse. Now hold still.
This is not Spider-Man. Somebody needs to stop this menace. I'm gonna take a little break here, guys, to tell you a story. In Amazing Spider-Man 698, we start off the story by seeing Peter being a little bit off. He's acting kind of similar to how Andrew Garfield acts in this movie. He's kind of mean, but not in an evil way. He's just kind of a dick. And then it gets progressively worse, and as a reader, you're like, okay, wait a minute. It was a little noticeable at first, but at this point, Peter Parker's hitting on women who aren't Mary Jane while he's on a date with Mary Jane. He seems to not really care about the lives of others. Something isn't right here. What is going on? Why is Peter such an asshole in this comic book? But then by the end of the story, you find out that that wasn't Peter Parker. That was some other dude. I'm not going to spoil who it is because that's one of the best Spider-Man stories, but it's so well written because you you as a reader know that something isn't right because you're so familiar with Spider-Man. The whole story relies on your expectations of how Peter Parker is supposed to act. People know what kind of person he's supposed to be, even if you don't know Spider-Man that well. What I'm trying to say is that this is the problem these movies have. If you don't get Peter Parker right, people aren't going to be sold. You're not going to get people to like these movies. It may seem like a small thing, but like I said, the little shit adds up. Now we get to another part of the movie that I like. It's just this shot of Dr. Connors looking at the reflection of his arm. This is a really good shot. I think this is really cool. Anyway, now we have another scene of romantic ad-libbing.
Yeah, they're beautiful, right?
They're beautiful.
They were nice.
No, they're beautiful.
I'm sorry.
No, it's impressive. They actually held together very well.
I also love how Captain Stacy describes Spider-Man in this movie.
He's an amateur who's assaulting civilians in the dead of night. He's clumsy, he leaves clues, but still dangerous.
Yeah, you said it, brother. Fuck Spider-Man. That guy's a menace. And since that scene's over, we have to go back to Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield making strange, inhuman noises at each other.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No. It's impossible.
Jesse. What? What?
So after that, the Lizard attacks people on a bridge, and Peter saves them, and he finally learns how to be a fucking hero. The movie is halfway over, and Peter Parker finally learned how to be a good person. But then after that, the Lizard finds out who Spider-Man is because Peter Parker put his name on the camera that he brought to the Lizard's secret lair. Are you fucking serious? Come on, man.
Easy, bug boy.
Wait, what did you just say?
Easy, bug boy.
I can't be the only one who heard that. Also, I should mention that in these movies... Come on, man.
Easy, bug boy.
Wait, what did you just say?
Easy, bug boy.
I can't be the only one who heard that. Also, I should mention that in these movies, the second one included, the effects are pretty good. The Lizard looks like a fucking Goomba from the Mario Brothers movie, but other than that, things don't look too bad. However, what is bad is the Lizard's plan to turn everyone in New York into lizards. I almost can't say that sentence out loud without laughing.
You mean people are pissed off because he tried to turn everyone in New York City into giant lizards?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. So yeah, Peter Parker beats up the Lizard, Captain Stacy dies, and then his dying wish to Peter Parker is for him not to date Gwen Stacy. Damn, dude, that's cold-blooded. You're gonna do him like that? Alright. But what I love in this is that Peter's actually gonna go through with this. He actually breaks up with Gwen. But then of all people, Aunt May is the one to tell him, hey man, you should go fuck that girl. And he's like, okay, sure, I guess you're right. And yeah, that's how the movie ends, with Peter Parker not learning his fucking lesson.
Poor Peter Parker.
Picked a peck of pickled peppers, 5 out of 10. So like I said in the last video, I haven't seen this movie before. So is it just as bad as I thought?
That's a question. That's a question.
No. It's actually worse. So in the first scene, we see more shit about Peter Parker's parents. I already said why I hate this, but with the context of the last movie, I hate it even more. In this series, the person who makes the radioactive spiders is Peter Parker's dad, and I really don't like that. The idea of Spider-Man should be that this is just a random thing that could have happened to anybody. Anybody could have walked in there and gotten bitten by the spider and become a superhero. That's what people want to see. Some stories have tried to change that, and they try to imply that, oh, maybe it was Peter's destiny to become Spider-Man. But people really don't like it, so it rarely sticks. So in this first scene, we see the event that kills Peter Parker's parents. I hate saying that. Peter Parker's parents. It just sounds weird. Whatever, anyway, this assassin sneaks onto their private jet, and he wants to kill them. I don't really care why he wants to kill them. It really doesn't matter. If you remove this scene entirely, it changes absolutely nothing. So this guy's plan is to kill Peter's parents. He kills the pilot, and he tries to talk to Peter's dad, and then he gloats before killing him, and then they all fight. It might become clear to you immediately that this does not feel like a Spider-Man movie. This feels like a James Bond movie. So then Peter's dad knocks out the assassin, and he just kind of lackadaisically tends to his wife while working on his fucking computer. Brought to you by Sony, by the way. Maybe you should kind of focus on the fact that there's no pilot for the airplane. I don't know, that's just me. That's what I would do, but what do I I know. So anyway, the pilot, who's been dead since before the scene started, decides to do this. I mean, sure. Whatever. This is such a stupid fucking scene, and the movie literally just started. This is just the beginning of the film, ladies and gentlemen. So after this, we see Peter Parker, and I have to admit, I actually like this shot. This is literally the only shot in the entire movie that I like. That last scene was so fucking stupid that by the time you see Spider-Man, you're like, oh shit, I forgot what movie I was seeing. Alright, let's go. Also, like I said before, the effects in both of these movies are pretty good. And the Spider-Man suit in this one is probably the best looking movie suit out of all of them. That's it. Those are the only things I'm going to say nice about this movie. Because for about 30 seconds into this sequence, you think to yourself, okay, this movie might not be as bad as everybody says. Maybe I won't mind that much. But yeah, no, this movie is fucking terrible. Everything is wrong with it. So the movie starts with Peter chasing the Rhino downtown. Now, people have mentioned this before, so I'll bring it up very briefly. But instead of stopping the Rhino right when he has the chance, he instead tells jokes and fucks around and lets the Rhino kill people and cause more damage. And then after all those people die, he hangs out with Jamie Foxx in this really weird-ass interaction.
Look that. All right, listen to me. Now I need you. You're my eyes and ears out here. All right? All right.
What the fuck? Peter Parker, there is a man killing people. Can you stop fucking around? Oh, by the way, I really quick have to show you guys something. Now, there's a problem with these movies that I didn't mention when I was talking about the last movie, because it's way worse in this one. And that is Peter Parker's weird accent.
You better hurry up. Party's over.
No.
You gotta get a job.
He has this rough New Yorker accent, and in this one, it's just way too aggressive. It's like the fake voice that Tom Holland uses as a joke in Homecoming.
My dad left a briefcase. That's all I got. Briefcase full of junk. Whatever. I don't know. I try to think about it.
Hey, how you doing? Don't worry about it. I got you.
Also, if you thought the editing in the last movie was bad, this is just incomprehensible. Sometimes you'll have a scene where you can tell that they just mashed two takes together that didn't have anything to do with one another. Characters will be talking, and then the next line is responding to something that we haven't even heard.
All night? I want to hear it all night long.
Over and over again, all night long.
It's kind of hard to explain, but it makes the scenes very confusing. So Peter's getting like these weird PTSD flashbacks of Captain Stacy, so he decides that he's actually going to dump Gwen once and for all. He gets back with her like 8 times in the movie, so this really doesn't matter. But for now, Peter Parker is single, and he is going to do Spider-Man stuff. We get a nice montage of Peter being Spider-Man, and I actually really like this montage. If I just think of this montage without any other context, I would not assume that it's from this movie.
Yo, that spider guy.
Up by the bed. Oh, Spider-Man.
Remember when I said there was no more good stuff in this movie? For real, I mean it. This is the last scene that's good. So now we see Jamie Foxx again, and he is now a delusional mess because Spider-Man was fucking flirting with him earlier. He now thinks Spider-Man is his roommate slash best friend. Even Gwen gets kind of upset that Spider-Man and him shared a little romantic moment together. So right after that, we are shown Harry Osborn, played by Dane DeHaan. And he just literally shows up in the movie. And he acts like he was there from the very beginning. In his subplot, he finds out that his dad, Norman Osborn, is dying from the Osborn curse. Their words, not mine. It is a disease that is never explained, that Harry is now dying from. So basically, he just enters the scene, finds out that he's dying, and that's gonna be what the movie's about. So this eventually leads to Harry looking for ways to cure himself, which brings him to the conclusion that he needs Spider-Man's blood to create a cure. What the fuck? It might now become apparent to you that this movie has a lot going on. It's like how in Spider-Man 3 had a bunch of subplots that were trying to fight for the spotlight, except here, they're all happening at the same time, and they have nothing to do with one another. You've got Peter Parker fucking looking for his parents, which goes nowhere and just kind of ends. You've got Peter and Mary Jane, sorry, who the fuck is this? Gwen Stacy? Whatever. Peter and this chick fucking going back and forth, will they, won't they, the whole movie, and then she fucking dies, so whatever. You have Harry looking for a cure for his fucking leper disease, which has nothing to do with the other 2 plot lines that I described. It's really hard to talk about why this movie doesn't make sense, because as you watch it, you'll realize it just doesn't make any sense. You won't know what's happening. So anyway, Jamie Foxx falls into a vat of eels, and he turns into Electro. And yes, like many have said before me, the electric eels magically fix the gap between his teeth. This is something completely superfluous that doesn't even need to happen. Yet when you see it, you cannot stop wondering why it happened. So in the next scene, we see more characters that were supposed to have future films. You're in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we've reached the point in the movie where Harry and Peter have to meet each other, and the movie expects us to believe that they have been friends for years. Hold on a second. Excuse me. What? This comes out of fucking nowhere. Why didn't you mention this before? Harry has never been mentioned in the entire last movie. Why did you act like you knew nothing about Oscorp in the last movie, but you secretly knew the heir to the Oscorp Empire? We get this scene of them skipping stones and talking about how good of friends they are. It's like the most cliche shit I've ever seen. I hate this. It's like those scenes in the Star Wars prequels where Obi-Wan and Anakin talk about how they're great friends and they did all these adventures that we don't get to see.
You fell into that nightmare, Master, and I rescued you, remember?
Oh, yes. Anyway, we have another scene of Peter and Gwen flirting with fucking improvised dialogue. These two were dating when the movie was filmed, so I'm pretty sure they just turn on the camera.
From the director of Forrest Gump.
I got beat up because I was different.
Welcome to Hope.
So I created a world where I can be whoever I want to be.
Welcome to Healing.
To life, to love, to Marwin.
Welcome to Marwin, rated PG-13.
Camera, and they were like, okay, Emma, Andrew, just go hang out. We're gonna record you hanging out. It'll be great. We'll put it in the movie. We'll do it for every fucking scene.
No more of this.
Andrew, just go hang out. We're gonna record you hanging out. It'll be great. We'll put it in the movie. We'll do it for every fucking scene.
No more of this. No more of this little nose rub you do. Don't think I haven't paid.
What am I supposed to do? It's allergy season.
This is killing me. I got it. Spitting in the face of my brown nose.
And then in this conversation, he admits to her that he's been following her on the fucking rooftops dressed as Spider-Man, and this somehow doesn't scare the shit out of her. So now Electro, with his newfound powers, goes into Times Square and makes a big ol' ruckus. And he gets kind of upset and scared, so Spider-Man tries to calm him down. Now, I've heard a lot of people in their reviews say that this scene is stupid because Electro only becomes evil after Spider-Man forgets his name. But that's not really what happens. What really happens is somehow stupider if you really think about it. We see that Max Dillon is not very mentally stable here. He thinks that Spider-Man is his best fucking friend. Spider-Man noticing his name tag in the beginning of the movie was something that was very important to him. So if it actually happened that way, I would have bought it. I would have been fine with it. But no, when Peter forgets his name, he's actually pretty chill about it. He's not that upset. He gets over it. However, right after that, Peter saves this guy from a falling billboard, and everybody cheers for him. And then all the screens in Times Square show Spider-Man instead of Electro. Now, first of all, why is everybody gathered around to watch this happen? That's kind of a theme in this movie. Every fight scene that happens has fucking people just standing around. Police usually make people go away when there's an emergency. But in this movie, whenever there's a fucking fight, people just show up to watch like it's New Year's Eve. People even bring their fucking children. This is not where you want your kid to be. They could get shot. Something bad could fucking happen. So after this, Electro decides that Spider-Man is his true enemy, and he attacks him and the people on the Times Square steps. Now, I admit this is kind of nitpicky, but the people start running up the steps. But in Times Square, those steps don't go anywhere. Where are you guys running to? But after that, they just go down the steps anyway, so what the fuck was the point of that? So after that, Electro flies around killing people until Spider-Man sprays him with a hose. Spider-Man literally left the fight, put on a fireman's hat, and then saved the people who were being murdered. The fucking hat just shows me that you were wasting time when people were being murdered. Peter Parker just doesn't care in this movie. Anyway, this movie isn't even halfway over, and we haven't even seen the other villain yet. Also, hey look, I'm in the movie. Brought to you by Sony. Oh, and right after that, brought to you by Sony again. Jesus Christ, at least space them out. After that scene, we get to the real reason why I personally have never seen this movie. And the reason isn't exactly what you might expect. Out of nowhere, the next scene is a montage of Peter deciding to do some detective work to find out secrets about his dad. Why is he deciding to do this now? Well, because the movie wants him to. He just had a fight with Electro that he barely won. He just had a fight with Gwen Stacy that he didn't win. Instead of solving the problems that have already been established in the film, he's gonna act like those problems don't exist, and he's gonna do something completely different. Because the screenplay is a fucking mess. And during this montage, we have the song Gone, Gone, Gone by Philip Phillips, also known as the For You song.
And I will do it for you.
I fucking hate this song.
This song is on my list of most hated songs in the entire world, right under Crocodile Rock and Bad Reputation. I kind of like Bad Reputation.
Yeah, me too, a little bit.
Freaks and Geeks. Hey, we talked about Freaks and Geeks twice in one video. Look at that. Now, my friends know that I hate this song with a burning passion. And when they went to go see this movie without me, I asked them how it was, and they were like, don't see it. The fucking For You song is in it. And that
not
is
even
the
close.
reason
We're not
why
even
I've
done.
never seen this movie until today. Because I don't like that song. So then Harry calls him up in the middle of this, and he's like, hey, bitch, remember, I'm still in the fucking movie. And then he's like, hey, listen, I need Spider-Man's blood because I need to heal my mysterious fake movie disease.
You can do everything else a spider can, including self-heal.
Wait, what? How do you know that? How do you know he can self-heal? That never happens in the movie. It's one of his powers in the comics, but he's not fucking Wolverine. He can't just regenerate. Are you okay? Do you need a copy of the script right now? There's no reason for Peter Parker to say no to this. His buddy's like, hey man, I need this dude's blood or I'm gonna die. And Peter's like, ew, no. I don't want to do that. So now Peter shows up to Harry's house dressed as Spider-Man just to tell him that he doesn't want to give him his blood. Not only is he being an asshole by not giving him his blood, he's being even more of an asshole by just showing up to tell him that he's not going to give him his blood. He's gonna die anyway. I don't see you trying to help with any other ideas. You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
Okay, this movie's hilarious.
This movie is hilarious. And then, after that, Peter, in a fit of rage... Fraud, Spider-Man! Okay, I take it back. This movie is hilarious. And then, after that, Peter, in a fit of rage, throws his calculator at the wall. And then inside the calculator are these fucking gold doubloons that I guess his dad hid in the calculator. Okay. Sure. But then Peter brings them into the subway and uses them on this random coin slot, and then a train comes out of the fucking ground.
Yeah, it does come out of the fucking ground. What is happening?
By
This
now,
is not
I've forgotten
Spider-Man.
that Electro is in this movie. The pacing in this movie is so fucking bad. This is the hardest review I've ever made because I can just tell you what happens and you just have to assume that I'm not leaving anything out because I'm telling you everything. This doesn't make any sense. So the subplot about his dad ends here. He finds out that his dad made the spiders, which is something we already fucking
know.
So now Harry is brooding on his Blade Runner set, and Jyn Erso comes to comfort him because they want to remind you that she is actually in the movie.
Go home, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia. So then Harry gets framed for what happened to Electro and he gets kicked out of Oscorp. He then breaks into the facility that Electro is in by overpowering the armed guards. Now, I'm not really a very big guy myself, so believe me when I say with confidence that I could definitely kick Dane DeHaan's ass. So to have me believe that he overpowers two fully grown armed guards, sorry, I'm not buying it. So then Electro and Harry go into Oscorp, they kill a bunch of people, and then Harry finds the Krabby Patty secret formula that will heal his mysterious disease. And then he just immediately becomes the Green Goblin. Fine.
I don't care.
I don't care. So at this point, the only thing I have to look forward to is the fight between Peter and the bad guys. But then Gwen Stacy kills Electro with a car, and then Peter blows him up. So yeah, in this movie, Spider-Man just blew the villain up. I just don't have it in me to care anymore. Now, normally this is where the movie would end, but we have a whole other supervillain that was thrown in at the last minute that we have to deal with. So after Electro dies, Harry shows up, and we finally see that he looks like this now. Even the characters don't know how to react to how horrible he looks. Like, look at his face. He's like, oh, shit. Maybe I don't look as cool as I thought. So yeah, I guess they didn't want another Power Ranger-looking Green Goblin. Yeah, instead, let's make him look like a fucking crackhead. So then we have a really, really, really quick fight. And when I say really quick, I mean really quick. And as I said, the whole purpose of this fight and this movie was to kill Gwen Stacy. So, Gwen Stacy dies. Personally, as a big Spider-Man fan, I feel like killing Gwen Stacy isn't really possible in a movie. The death of Gwen Stacy is one of the most important comics of all time. Back then, you didn't kill the love interest. You didn't kill Lois Lane. It just wasn't done. The story's good because it showed that comics finally grew up. It showed that comics could do whatever they wanted, and they could subvert your expectations. The whole purpose of the story is to surprise you. Everybody knows Gwen Stacy as Spider-Man's girlfriend who dies. You can't put her in movies because people already know what's gonna happen. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try, but you should try way harder than this. So the movie's wrapping up and Peter Parker is sad and he's like, I'm not gonna be Spider-Man anymore. This is all my fault. And yeah, it actually is, so I'm glad you realize now. But then he watches like a fucking YouTube video of Gwen or whatever, and then he gets over it. Just like that. Brought to you by Sony. After all the bullshit in this movie, it ends the same way that it begins. With Peter Parker showboating and putting random people's lives at risk and having not learned a damn thing. Personally, I have had enough of bad Spider-Man movies, so I'm done making Spider-Man videos for a while. I need my fucking rest, okay guys? So I'm giving this terrible movie a 2 out of 10. I honestly wonder sometimes what The Amazing Spider-Man 3 would have been like. Maybe it would have been pretty good. Or maybe...
Part of the discussion was that possibly in 3, there was this idea at one point that Spider-Man would be able to take this formula and regenerate the people in his life that had died. So there was this discussion about that Captain Stacy would come back even bigger and...
Yeah, actually,
never mind.
I'm good.
Oh, I fucking hate this song. Drop it. Bitch. Probably like jump off a mountain so he doesn't have to hear this song. That'll be hilarious. So, yay, we're done with this terrible god-awful series. Okay. Until we get to Homecoming, which I think is really at the heart of the Marvel Universe. So thank you guys for watching. Bye. Wait. What did she say? Wait, what am I have to review? Okay, hold on. Let's check one more time. What movie are we reviewing next? I know I already did Minecraft Story Mode on Netflix. Fuck's sake, I had to. Thank you guys for watching this. Goodbye.